On today's episode, we are talking pre-wire. We're gonna make a map of our van build, we're gonna talk about wire types, and then we're gonna get them in the van. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC, and welcome back to the shop. Our van build is at the point where we're about to put our walls in, and our last step is gonna be putting in our pre-wire. So on today's episode, we're gonna go into the office, we're gonna make a map, we're gonna map out all of our appliances and decide where our runs are gonna go. Then we're gonna be talking about different wire types and why we wanna use them for different places in our van. Then we're gonna come out here to the van, we're gonna measure everything out, we're gonna make our wire runs, and we're gonna get them installed. Let's get to work. So we're up here in the studio, and I thought this would be a good place to just come to the table and plan out our pre-wire before we start measuring everything out and cutting wires. So let's go ahead and use our worksheet. This is a free download at avcrig.com. This is sized for a 148 transit, and we're coming out with an extended soon. I know a couple people requested that, and that'll be up on the site pretty quick. But we use this here in the shop for lots of things, and one of them is for pre-wire. So over here in this list area, we're just gonna list out all the electrical items on this side to make sure we don't forget anything. And at this point, even if you're doing your van in stages, let's pre-wire for everything in the van. That way when we button up the walls, we don't have to take everything down and run that one extra wire. Really easy and really cheap to pre-wire for a couple of extra things now. Then we can install those components down the road and everything's gonna be much easier. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is just make a list of the items we wanna put on here. So at the very top, I'm gonna list the exterior lighting pieces that we like to put on. I just like to do exterior lighting in all four corners of the van. That way if I do a light bar at the front, if I do some driver's side area lights, if I do rear lights, and I do an awning light or a passenger side light, all those things are pre-wired, ready to go. So let's go ahead and start with exterior lights. So most of my exterior lights being LED don't have a huge amp draw. The very front light, like a big light bar, might have a higher amp draw. So we're gonna wire that with a 12 gauge wire. So this is gonna be driver's front. And that's gonna be 12 gauge. Okay, and then, actually not number 12, 12 AWG. And then the others is gonna be, I like to go 1, 2, 3, 4 around the perimeter of my van. So number 2 is gonna be my driver rear. 3 is gonna be passenger rear. And 4 is gonna be passenger front. Okay, and these are all gonna be 14 gauge. Okay. So that's all my exterior lights. While we're on the topic of those exterior lights, let's consider the other things that are gonna be coming down from the roof. So I like to group all of my wires into the bundles that they're gonna be kind of grouped together. So all those things that are up on the roof are all gonna come down together. So let's just put all those in a nice tight list here. So up here on the roof, we're gonna have solar. We're also going to have our rear camera. We're gonna be putting in a Wolfbox live view monitor rear view camera. We also are gonna have a cell booster on there. It's my first time to personally have a cell booster. So we're just gonna need to bring that antenna wire up to the roof. So cell boost. And then on this one, this is kind of a special one. Normally in a van, we can do the fan inside. Because we have that pop top or that rooftop tent, we need to bring that fan wire to the outside, and it's gonna run with the solar up to the top of the roof. So we're gonna go ahead and put fan power here as well. The only thing I can think of on the roof that you might wanna consider is Starlink. Personally, I've had a Starlink for a while. I never really use it. Part of the point of us getting out in the van is to get away from this stuff. I don't live in the van and I'm not working from the road. We're putting on a cell booster so we can get a little bit of extra signal, which I think will be enough for our use case. But if you're gonna do Starlink, this would be the place to put it. Okay. All right, so that's everything on the roof of the van. Now let's think about the different zones we're gonna have around the van itself. So high up here on the driver's side, I'm gonna have a bank of overhead cabinets, and that's gonna be my main control panel. So my next cluster of wiring is gonna be for CP, or my control panel. And at the control panel, we're gonna need a Cat 6 wire, and that is for our EcoFlow. That powers that touch screen, so we can interact with that. We also need our S-bar control wire. So S-bar data cable here, and I'll just write data on the side. Then we're gonna need light power, so just power for our ceiling lights. Oh, no. Light power, we're gonna need USBs for the overhead cabinet. And then up here, I always like to run an auxiliary. So really easy, like I was saying, to pre-run some extra wires to this location right now. Then in the future, if I realize, oh, I wish I had this, I wanna add that, I have extra wires, there's already power there, even if it's buried in a wall or it's hanging out inside that control panel box, those wires are available to me without pulling the whole thing apart. Okay, so while we're here at the CP, let's go ahead and label those wires. So Cat6, obviously that's just a Cat6 wire. Our S-bar is a data cable that is specific to your S-bar. So it's pretty special. You have to order your S-bar ahead of time if you're trying to do just pre-wire. You can order this data cable by itself from sbarparts.com. Okay, so I labeled that data. Our light power is just going to be a 14 gauge. Our USB is also 14 gauge. We're only going to power a couple of USBs off of that. And then my auxiliary, I have lately been doing 14.4 for all of my auxiliaries. So we'll just go 14.4. That just means it's 4 14 gauge wires. That gives me 2 complete circuits up there for extra wiring. So that's our control panel. The next one is going to be our driver side front. So I'm going to go ahead and just label this DRF for driver side front. And that's just up in front of where the kid seats are. And right here on this wall, I'm going to put DRF, and we're going to do a 110 outlet in case we need to plug something like a laptop in down there. We're also going to run a USB down there so the kids can keep things charged up when we're on a really long road trip. So the 110 is pretty self-explanatory. It's just going to be our number 12 3-wire. And then the USB is going to be a 14. So this is 12.3. Our USB is going to be 14.2. Okay, so that's our driver side front area. Boom. So then we have our driver's middle. Driver's middle is actually going to be adjoining our power kit. So our power box is going to be over here on the driver's side. So this is where power is going to be. Okay, and then right next to that is going to be our fridge. So the fridge is going to fit right behind that C-pillar and right here. Okay, so on this side we need a fridge. So we need a fridge. I'm going to put, so that's our driver's middle. Actually, let's just go ahead and label it DRM. Okay, so driver's middle is going to have, we need a 110 outlet for the wall so we can plug in an appliance that's going to sit there on top of the counter. I'm going to put a 110 inside that's going to be for an induction hot plate that's going to be inset into the countertop. So I'll have 110 induction, and then we're going to have 110 outlet. Then we're going to need a fridge wire here. And that's going to be a 12.2. And then these are both 12.3s. I'm going to keep both of these on separate circuits, especially since we're working with this EcoFlow. It's really nice that we can, it already has all the circuit breakers and everything in there. It has more than we need for the van. And all those circuit breakers can be controlled individually via the app or via the touchscreen. So it's kind of cool to run individual circuits for all your outlets in the van, and that way you can turn things off if you don't want them on. Like the induction hot plate, I don't want it to come up on standby. If I want to turn the 110 systems on in the van, I don't need to activate that one. So it's pretty cool. Okay, that finishes out the driver's side because then we just have our power kit in the back. So then across the van we have our passenger side. Now passenger side is going to be basically a utility cabinet here at the back, and that's going to be really slim. Okay, and then we're going to have our kitchenette at the very front, and our kitchenette is going to house our hot water heater in the back of it. So that's going to be inside, and then we're going to have our sink and our faucet in there as well. Okay, so on our passenger side, we're going to need to pre-wire for 110 outlet for the hot water heater. So hot H2O. We're going to have an outlet on the wall there. And these are going to be 12.3. Okay, then we're also going to be bringing a pump switch over to this side. We need our switch leg run over there, and that's just 14.2. Actually, that's a long run. We're going to go ahead and run a 12.2 there. Then we have an auxiliary. We're going to do a USB on this side. And that could be 14. And we need a cargo crossover. So we always put cargo lights on our utility cabinets, and that way we can turn them on, we can light up underneath the bed, we can see everything that's in there. I like to have my switch on the passenger side because that's our primary door. So when I open up that first door, I can go ahead, reach inside, and turn on those cargo lights. That means I need to bring power over there, but then we're going to have a slave circuit that goes over to the driver's side to activate the lights on the driver's side so we can light it up from both sides. So we're going to run a cargo crossover, but it's going to be 14.4. And that just means it's 4 wires that we can have 2 wires for the power kit, for the power to bring over, and then 2 wires to bring that light kit over to the other side. 14.4, all right. And the only other thing we need to throw in there is an auxiliary. And I'm running out of room on this sheet. Auxiliary, passenger, and that's going to be 14.4 as well. Okay. This one has a new product in it. So normally I would bring pump power over to my passenger side because that's where my water pump is going to be. That's where my water system is. But on this van, we're actually going to be mounting our water pump under the van with a new product that's going to be coming up in a future episode because we're doing undermount water tanks. So all of our water system, all that stuff is going to be underneath the van. We need our switch wire inside the passenger side to activate at the sink. Everything else can be underneath the van. And because it's here at the power kit, we don't really need to pre-wire for it. We're just going to bring those power wires down and under the van. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and just label that so I don't forget to make that penetration. Now is a good time to do that when I've got all the wires out and I'm cutting holes in the van. So I'm going to do driver rear. I'm going to put that over here. And I'm just going to do a number 12. This is just going to be pump power. And that's going to be 12, 2. All right. Hey everybody, real quick, I just want to say, if you are curious about getting a van built by AVC, go ahead and hit that link in the description below, and our team will reach out and get your project started. This is just one episode in a build series, so if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and follow along with this entire build. Now, let's talk about wire types. So part of this video is talking about some of this wiring that we use in the van too. Now, we do have an older video where we talk about pre-wiring the van, and at that time, we did things a little bit differently. We used to use a lot of this speaker wire. So the speaker wire stuff just has a little bit lighter duty jacket on it. I honestly think this is totally fine to run your van with. We used 100% oxygen-free copper, so it's quality wire. One of the big reasons I shifted away from this was that a lot of them had this like paper coating inside and a little thread that you could use to strip the jacket. And frankly, it's just annoying. We do a lot of vans. I'm cutting and stripping a lot of wire. I hate having to tear that little paper off, and it looks kind of messy. And we just wanted a cleaner look. So we switched to a marine grade wire, which is just realistically the same kind of stuff. The jacketing on the wire is a little bit different. The exterior here is a little bit tougher, and then it's a little bit more flexible for inside the van. So if you're looking to upgrade your wiring or you're just buying something new, I would probably go for this marine wire. If you did your van in this other stuff, the speaker wire that we've promoted in the past, there's no reason to undo it, and it's going to be totally fine for you. So one of the biggest changes we've made over the years is for our 110 wiring. Now, in the past, we've promoted using like an extension cord, and this was honestly just a bad habit left over from working at one of the previous van shops I worked at. I thought it was like a good way to do this kind of thing, but the reality is it's a really big pain in the butt to work with, and the reason is this jacketing on the outside, although very durable, and that's good for a van, makes it really hard to strip the wire. So we'd have to score it with a knife like this, okay? But we have to be really gentle not to actually penetrate the wires, which means we kind of have to like fold it and stress it. And even now here on video, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, it didn't go enough. So I have to go through a little bit more. And the reality is, if you nick one of these wires, it's going to be a fire hazard. So you got to be really careful doing this. And in the end, it's really not much better than using something like this 12-3 wire. Now this is marine grade 12-3 wire, just like the other wiring that we're used. This is a 14-2 section. But instead of using the knife and stripping down this sheathing, this other style stuff doesn't fit in my regular wire strippers. I can just use my normal wire stripper. I can cut that apart. Now I have my 110 circuit here, and then I can just strip these out. I can put my ring terminals on here, and I can put it into my circuit. So super easy, super fast, in the end much safer, and I think it's a much better way to go. So of all the things I've promoted in the past, this is probably the biggest foot in my mouth thing that I look back and kind of cringe on. I wish I would have been using this forever. It cost us a lot of time and a lot of heartache. And hopefully we got this note to you in time so you can use this stuff in your upcoming build. But as you can see, this speaker wire stuff, this strips out just the same, but this has that little pull wire here. So if I wanted to pull that through the jacketing, we could do that to split it out. But really, once it's opened up, everything is pretty much the same here. The jacketing on this stuff, it's rated for underground burial, so it's pretty durable stuff. Multi-strand copper inside. Same thing here. This is tinned copper, but multi-strand copper inside. I think this is actually 12 gauge, and this is 14. So this is a 14-4 section. We still actually use some of this speaker wire for some of our multi-core runs, so things like a 14-4, or this is actually 12-4. So this is 12 number 4, or four number 12 wires in one bundle. It does make running some auxiliary circuits, things like that, a little bit easier, especially like under the floor wiring. But hopefully this is some good info for you to apply to your van wiring. So our map is filled out. Let's go into our stock room and let's start pulling wire for all these different locations. So actually, before we start pulling wire, it's probably important to know how long our wire runs are going to be. So we're going to jump in the van and we're going to talk through how I measure wire runs here in the vehicle. So in this van, our power kit is going to go here on the driver's side. My fuse panel is going to live right in front of the panel, and I want to make sure my wires come out of the wall and I have enough room to comfortably wire to my fuse panel. So everything here, I want 2.5 to 3 feet coming out of here. If my fuse panel was in the back, I would want a full arm length. If you don't know exactly where your electrical kit is going to get mounted yet, because that's something you're going to do down the road, just go ahead and give yourself a full arm length inside this cabinet. Now I measure everything in the van in arm lengths when I'm doing pre-wire. That makes it really easy while I'm pulling wire in my wire room to just stretch from one arm length to another arm length here. That's going to be 5 feet. And I know that because we've done a lot of this already. So if I have 2.5 feet here, that's half an arm length. Then I need to come up here and go up to the top of my van. So we're going to go half an arm length here. We'll just call this half an arm length inside the wall. And then from here to up at the top of my van, that's another arm length. So that's 1, 2 across the van, 3 down here. And then from this spot, I want another arm length outside of the wall. So we have 1 arm length. If we count our extension to this point, then 2 to the top, 3 across, 4 down, and then 5 outside of that wall. So if we do a 5 arm length run, that's going to get all my wires from my fuse panel over the top to my passenger side, and then I have enough to get to all my appliances on this side. Okay, so using that same principle, let's measure out the same, right? So we have half an arm length here, half an arm length inside the panel, another arm length to go up to the front of the panel here, and I'm going to put a couple of outlets here. So I have 1, 2 arm lengths is going to be more than enough to put a couple of outlets low in the panel here. If I'm going to my control panel up above, same thing. 1 arm length to go inside of the wall, 2 arm lengths to come up to my panel, and then I want another half an arm length to wire up inside that panel. So 2.5 for my upper control panel. So I'm going to take all these measurements. I'm just going to go to and wire or write them down on my wiring list. Then when I go to my stock room, I can start pulling my wire lengths. I'm just going to use those same arm lengths to measure out all my wire. When in doubt, round up. It's really cheap to have a few extra feet of wire on a circuit than it is to run a little bit short and have to cut and splice something. So save yourself the trouble, run a little bit extra. So we're here in the stock room and we're just going to be pulling some wire for all these different locations. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my control panel here. My control panel is 2.5 arm lengths and I need a Cat 6 and an S-bar. Those are going to be data cables that are already pre-measured. But my light power is a 14, my USB is a 14, and my auxiliary is 14. So I need 8 circuits of 14. I have some 14-4 and 14 single gauge wire in this room. So let's go ahead and pull those lengths out. So this is going to be my control panel auxiliary. This is a 14-4, so 14 gauge and 4 wires. I'm just going to go ahead and pull arm lengths. 1, 2, 3, 2.5 is going to go right to my chin. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit extra. We're going to cut that right there. Okay. So then on both ends of this wire, I'm going to put CP for control panel. That's the location it's going. And I'm going to write auxiliary because this is an auxiliary circuit. So I'm just going to write CP. And I don't want to write it right at the very end. Let's come back about 8 inches or so. That way when I strip these wires off, that circuit is still going to be labeled in the future. So right here, I'll just write CP auxiliary, or AUX. And I'm going to put that on both ends. CP, AUX. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put a little check mark next to that circuit on my wiring diagram. That way I know I already pulled it. Put these in a pile outside the room here, or just wherever is convenient for you. Then I can move on to my next pull. Okay, so same thing. We're going to run, or same thing here. We're going to run our light wiring. So it's another 14 gauge. This is just 14-2, and I'm going to go ahead and go 1 arm length, 2 arm lengths, 3 to the middle of my body, give myself another 18 inches of extra. Okay, and I can go ahead and cut that circuit. Okay, on this one, I'm going to write light power. I'm going to go CP for control panel, because that's where it's going, and then lights, GH. Okay, So control panel lights. Same thing for this one here. CP lights, set that aside. Okay, and our last circuit here. 1, 2, 3. And then this is CP USB. Okay, control panel USBs. Okay, set that aside. And check off that I got those, USB and lights. All right. I have my S-bar data cable and my Cat 6 out at the table, so let's go ahead and grab all this stuff and run out to the table. Out here at the table, I grabbed my Cat 6 cable here, and this is gonna power my EcoFlow touchscreen. So I'm just gonna put this in line here. This is a pre-measured cable, so I don't need a ton of extra inside, but I do wanna make sure I have enough inside the front panel because this actually comes through the face of the panel. So I'm gonna give it another 5-6 inches there. Okay, so I'm gonna bundle these wires together, and I'm just gonna throw some electrical tape on them to keep them tidy. So I'm gonna put one loop of electrical tape right behind the labels where I made. Okay, I don't need a ton, just a quick loop around there. I'm gonna do one loop right here at the front. It's gonna make my life easier to start fishing these through the van. Okay, just like that. And then about every 3 feet or so, I'm gonna put another little loop of electrical tape just to kind of keep these wires as tidy as possible. So now our wires are bundled together. Everything is pretty tidy as we can be. Remember, we had 2.5 arm lengths of this. So 1, 2, like 2.5 plus. So we're gonna match our loom to that same length. We're gonna grab 2.5 arm lengths of loom. All right, so here at the shop, we've moved to using this expandable sleeving stuff. So it kind of shrinks and expands as you push it, like one of those finger trap toys you had as a kid. The thing about this loom is it'll actually accommodate larger bundles if you need to. So if I shrink it up, you'll see it gets really wide. So if I overfill this loom, it's actually gonna shrink up a little bit. And looking at our bundle, I think it's gonna be a little bit bigger than this 3/4. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull 3.5 arm lengths of this. That way I have extra loom and I'm not overstretching it or it doesn't come up short. So I just threw a quick clamp here on the table. I can stab this through there. That keeps everything a little more tidy and organized. So I can go ahead and measure out 1, 2, 3.5. Boom. Okay. That's a cut, and now let's start feeding this onto our loom. So to get this stuff onto our loom, we just feed our wire. We can actually open it up a little bit, feed our wire into here, going from the side that I taped up nice and close to the end. Okay, and once it's started, it actually works pretty easy. Just kind of push some on, push it on until it's there, and then I can slide it on the other way. Just kind of do this all the way for the length of our wire. Okay, so then as I feed this through, I'm going to tape this onto my wiring harness right behind those labels so I can see everything really clearly. So I just take my electrical tape, I'm going to wrap one wrap around just the loom itself. And then one wrap onto my wiring. And that's good. Now it's secured on one end here. Now I can just stretch this over the top of my wires. Okay, keeping good pressure on here. I want everything nice and tight. And okay, so I came down to here and it looks like I have a little bit extra, but that's not the end of the world. I'm gonna go ahead and cut down the length of this loom. Okay, and I just want to cut enough back that the ends of my wires are exposed. Just like that. Now I can go ahead and tape this up. And I know that this excess side here is going to go down at my fuse panel inside my utility cabinet. The other end is going to go up to my control panel. So let's grab this wire run, let's go in the van and route it through our walls. So here in the van, I'm going to start where my control panel is going to be. I'm going to route it into the wall where I want these all coming in. Okay, so we're going to go right through this opening here. I'm going to come through these openings that we drilled earlier. So we use a 1 5/8 bit. We have these little plastic Hakko knockout bushings that insert into those metal cut openings. That's going to protect our wire from any raw edges. So we're going to wire that from, or we're going to route it from underneath here, up through our Hakko. This is why I tape the ends of these wires to keep everything as tidy as possible. Okay. And I'm just going to feed the bulk of it through here right now. I'm going to do this until I have about that 2.5 feet inside this wall. Okay, then I can stop feeding it through the wall. Now I'm going to come up. Okay. Now I'm going to route through here. And this bit's a little tricky because we have to route it through some openings in the wall in this area right here. So peeking up inside, you can see we have some factory holes here, and we can bring some of these wires through. So I want to leave this large hole here from one of my large looms. That's probably going to be for my passenger side wiring harness. It's going to have a lot of 110s, a lot more wires. This one here can be for something fairly slim. I think this one here is going to be a good one for my control panel. Okay, so I'm just going to try and feed my arm through here. See if we can match my fingers to the ends of my wires, and that's going to help them find that opening. Okay, I got one of my wires. That's going to help feed the rest of my wires through there. On our vans, we can just use this hole right here, especially with the skeleton kit. It's going to give this wire enough room to slide behind our wall kit and go to our control panel, which is going to be in this location. So I want to have enough room that this can come to the front of the control panel and I can get all my wiring done there. So that's just enough right there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. Now I can pull these backwards through here, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug this into my wall here for now just to hold it out of the way. I'm going to take up any slack that's there, and I can bring the slack down and into my cabinet, because extra wire inside my utility cabinet is a good thing. That's kind of what that utility cabinet's for. It soaks up some of that slack, but I don't want a bunch of extra wiring up here in the upper parts of the vehicle. So we have another run here ready to go. This is our driver's side front, which means we have a 14.2 for our kids USB and a 12.3 for that 110 outlet. So that's going to go in the wall, same location. Okay. Notice we have that end tape, so it makes it easier to feed. There's a little hole right here in between our behind the C-pillar and in front of the C-pillar. So we can go ahead and run this through here. Okay, so it's going to run through there. Then it's really easy just to run it below all of these. Onto the van, pull it into place, and then my outlets are going to be right here. So that's all I really need there. So we can just go ahead and leave that in place. These are back here at the back of the van, and you see we're going to start adding some bulk. The next one up is our passenger crossover. So this has our passenger USB. It also has our hot water 110 circuit and our outlet on the other side. So we're going to grab this. We're going to do the exact same thing we did here. Through the wall, up this here. We actually divided this passenger side into 2 runs just because if we had 6 wires all in one bundle, it's going to be a little big and it's going to be really tough to run. So just going to run this through here. Okay, so this looks good. That looks like enough to leave here on this side. Makes my life a lot easier using that large opening. Okay, and before I get too far, I'm going to go ahead and run it back through there and over the top of the van. Okay, and this is where those openings in our skeleton kit are super handy. Halfway there. So now we can run it through these open spaces. Okay. So with this crossover all the way over here to the passenger side, these are just my 110 outlets and a USB. They're most likely actually going to end up wired right around here, but we'll just coil them up inside the wall cavity for now. And when we need to pull them out of there, bring them to our final destination, we will. Let's go do this. Let's pull it out of this spot. Get these in a nice little coil and tuck it out of our way so we're not tripping over those wires as we go. It's a good spot for those to live for now. So that's just 3 examples of where to run wires in your van. Your build is obviously going to be a little bit different than ours, but hopefully you can extrapolate the principles we applied in this video, build your own wire map, make your wire runs, bring those to different locations in your van. In the interest of time, I'm not going to waste your time watching me run every single wire through this vehicle. It just doesn't really make sense. But that's it for our interior wiring. We're going to go ahead and knock the rest of this out. All right, everybody, that is our pre-wire video. So if you have questions about this process, the wire types, why we wire in different locations like we do, go ahead and hit us up in the comments below and we will see you there. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. If you learned something today, hit that like button and share it with a friend, and we'll see you on the next episode.